The Calus Mini-tool is by far the most popular weapon in Season of the Haunted in Destiny 2, and today I'm going to create a build with the Calus Mini-tool at the centre, and this build is going to get you spreading fire and explosions all around you. Well, today I'm going to check out the Calus Mini-tool, plus put together a Solar 3.0 build that is going to allow you to cause maximum destruction all over Destiny 2. Well, if you're new around here or find this useful, don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below for all the latest Destiny 2 content and turn on notifications by hitting that bell. And roughly 98% of viewers who watch This Week in Video Games aren't subscribed, so subscribe today and never miss an update. Well, before we get into the topic of today's video, let me know in the comments what you think about Season of the Haunted so far, what are your top weapons, plus give me some of your top rolls. Well, let's get into today's topic, and that is the Calus Mini-tool, and it made its return to Destiny 2 this season, and it is a very, very popular weapon indeed. This is due mainly to the weapon itself, but also because of the new perk called Incandescent. This is where defeating a target spreads Scorch to those nearby. Now, Scorch and Ignite, they're two new keywords of Solar 3.0, which essentially mean damage over time, building up to solar explosions. Well, Scorch is a damage over time debuff which you can apply to enemies with solar abilities, so with grenades, melee, super, and some weapons with the perk, for example Incandescent. It's very, very good. Enemies can be scorched by solar damage, then it stacks, and enemies take damage over time. Then Ignite or Ignition is where enemies tally up enough stacks of Scorch to trigger a large explosion. The only trick being you can't see the amount of stacks that are building up on your opponents. The only way to really know is when they explode in a solar explosion, you know they've hit 100 stacks. Well, Scorch and Ignite is great for massive ad clearing, so we can use a combination of aspects and fragments in our Solar 3.0 builds to maximise the effectiveness of our Scorch and Ignite abilities. For example, Ember of Eruption is really, really good. Ember of Blistering is also good. Yeah, in short, we want to apply as much Scorch as possible to ignite and explode as many enemies as we can. And we're going to do that using the Calus Mini-tool. We're looking closer at the Calus Mini-tool and the best rolls out there at the moment. One of them is Corkscrew Rifling, Accurized Rounds, Grave Robber, and Incandescent. Incandescent is the key, and that is where you've got defeating a target spreads Scorch to those nearby. More powerful combatants and opposing guardians cause Scorch in a larger radius. On the opulent weapons as well, we've got this new origin trait called 2 Excess, so final blows of the weapon while your super is full grant bonus to strength and discipline for a moderate duration. Well, to get the Calus Mini-tool in Season of the Haunted, you want to open up opulent chests on the Derelict Leviathan, and these opulent chests are located around the Leviathan. However, you can't open them all without an opulent key, and you can get your opulent keys from either Nightmare Containment or by opening up chests around the Leviathan. You can also craft the Calus Mini-tool, but first of all you need the pattern, and you need 5 Deep Sight Resonant versions or red bordered Calus Mini-tools. Level them up, and then you get the pattern for the weapon. Basically, then you can craft any version of the weapon that you want. Well, next up today, let's have a look at the Solar 3.0 build. So I'm going to go through the Solar setup, the weapons, the mods, and also the exotic armor too. So this is going to be a Warlock Solar 3.0 build, and that is because of the exotic armor. But I think this build could work on any Guardian, really. I'm just using my Warlock because of the exotic armor. But the basics for this build lie within Solar 3.0, the mods, and also Calus Mini-tool. And I think it would be good to experiment with Titans and Hunters too. So let me know down in the comments if you do some experimentation. Okay, so let's have a look at this Warlock Solar 3.0 build with Calus Mini-tool. Starting off with the Solar 3.0 setup. So for my super, I'm using Dawnblade. For my grenade, I'm using a Fusion Grenade. For my class ability, I'm using Healing Rift. And for my melee, I'm using Incinerator Snap. So next up, let's have a look at my aspects. I'm using Touch of Flame. This is going to help my Fusion Grenade explode twice. And then I'm using Icarus Dash. And that's going to help me get out of trouble nice and quickly, because you dodge quickly while airborne. For my fragments, I'm using Ember of Char. Your Solar Ignition spreads Scorch to affected targets. I'm using Ember of Ashes. You apply more Scorch stacks to targets. Ember of Eruption. Your Solar Ignitions have an increased area of effect. And Ember of Blistering. Defeat targets with Solar Ignitions, grants grenade energy. Well, Touch of Flame is good to allow our Fusion Grenade to explode twice. So I'm mainly using the fragments here, so Ignition spreads Scorch. Our explosions, they're going to scorch nearby targets through Ember of Char. Ashes allows us to apply more Scorch to targets, and so on and so forth. Basically, you want to amplify and increase the amount of scorch and therefore ignitions. Well, next up, let's have a look at my exotic armor. So I'm using Dawn Chorus. This one is an exotic warlock helmet. We've got the perk here, Rites of Ember. So your daybreak projectiles cause targets to scorch on contact, and your scorch effects deal more damage. You gain a small amount of melee energy each time your scorch effects damage a target. So our exotic armor allows us to deal more damage with our scorch stacks, plus we're getting our melee back when we're dealing scorch damage too, so that's really, really useful. Next up, let's have a look at the weapons. So in my kinetic slot, I'm using Silicon Neuroma. This one is a legendary kinetic sniper rifle with an aggressive frame, meaning high damage and high recoil. This adds some nice range to the build, given we're focused mainly on close-up damage with the Calus Mini-tool, although you could swap this out for a good fusion rifle, for example, Riptide or Burden of Guilt. In the energy slot, I'm using Calus Mini-tool, and the key here to this build is you want one with Incandescent. As I mentioned before, that means defeating a target that spreads scorch to those nearby, and that is going to really help with our Solar 3.0 build and spreading scorch all over the place. It's going to build up those scorch stacks, then enemies are going to explode when they ignite. Talking about making enemies explode, in my power slot, I'm using the Galahorn. This one is an exotic power rocket launcher that fires solar damage and comes with some pretty special perks. So Wolfpack rounds fired split into tracking cluster missiles upon detonation. Then you got Pack Hunter, so gain increased handling and reload speed when standing near allies. And firing the weapon also grants Wolfpack rounds to nearby allies wielding non-exotic rocket launchers. So if your team has rocket launchers, you're going to be a real MVP in your fire team. In terms of getting the Galahorn, you need to own the 30th anniversary pack. Then just simply visit Shorehan on the Cosmodrome. You have to run through the dungeon, but it is nice and easy to get hold of. And it's probably one of the best power weapons in Destiny 2. Well, finally then, let's have a look at the mods. So I'm using the Elemental Well mods here. So Elemental Ordnance, I'm using 2 of these. So defeating combatant with a grenade spawns an Elemental Well that matches a subclass energy type. I'm using Bountiful Wells. That essentially allows us to spawn more Elemental Wells, and that is why I'm running with 2 Elemental Ordnance. I'm using Explosive Well Maker, so rapidly defeating combatants with explosive damage spawns a Solar Elemental Well. And then I'm using Font of Might, so this is what I'm using my Elemental Wells for. So picking up an Elemental Well that matches a subclass energy type grants a temporary bonus to weapon damage of that same elemental type. Essentially, Solar subclass, Solar weapons, pick up those Elemental Wells and you're going to get a bonus to damage. Well, let me know in the comments what you think of the build and let me know if you've got any improvements. And that is it for this explosive Calus Mini-tool Solar 3.0 build with Dawn Chorus in Destiny 2. And as always, thank you so much for watching or listening. For more Destiny 2 content like this, hit that subscribe button down below and subscribe to This Week in Video Games. Or you can check me out on Twitter at TWIVG Podcast. If you enjoyed this video, found it useful, liking and sharing the video would really help me out. Otherwise, check out the other videos on the channel. Thanks again. I'll see you soon.